Welcome to the Drive-By Entrepreneur podcast, which exists to bring current and compelling content to entrepreneurs and influencers of small to mid-sized organizations. I'm John Frank, fellow entrepreneur and the owner of Third Road Management. And with this podcast, we will connect with a variety of experienced and dynamic individuals to shed some light on both the art and science of entrepreneurship. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our sponsors. First, my very own Third Road Management, a company that brings fractional CFO services to small and mid-sized organizations by revolutionizing the CFO suite. We'd also like to thank Two Hound Red, a brewery and restaurant located in Glen Ellen, Illinois, that is focused on creating classic, innovative beer and food. And finally, we'd like to thank NWC Media, which provides inbound marketing technology, project workflow management, and efficiency consulting to organizations of varied sizes, who is also the producer of the Drive-By Entrepreneur podcast. All right, Lily Barcelona, welcome to the Drive-By Entrepreneur podcast. How are you doing?
Good. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I love it. I'm really excited to dive in, to a lot of your story. I mean, we go way back, 1996 on campus together and at University of Illinois. And, in the last couple of years, like obviously before we started shooting, we were talking about, well, I don't know if I've seen you since graduation or maybe once or twice in passing, but in the last several years, just through LinkedIn and Facebook and things like that, I've been following your entrepreneurial journey. And I know you've been following mine as well. So, I mean, it was just kind of like, hey, let's make this happen and get in there. I'm really excited to learn more about what you're doing because I've just had, the opportunity at an arm's length to, read your posts and things like that. But I'm really excited to dive into the story behind it.
Thanks.
So yeah, I'm pumped. I usually start out just like there's a zillion podcasts, right? So like, why another one? And I explain it like this is like, I am a big fan, number one, of long form interview, because it just gives people an opportunity to like open up, share more about who they are, where their passions lie, how they got there, which I think, the journey is really important. But like the mission statement here is that we exist to bring current and compelling content to entrepreneurs and influencers of small to mid-sized organizations, right? I use organizations very specifically because it could be for-profit, it could be nonprofit, and there's plenty of lessons to learn in between those. And the whole idea is that like, one of the podcasts I really love is called How I Built This, which is NPR Guy Raz, but it's all about these companies that have gotten enormous, you know what I mean? And like, I find the early parts of that journey, right, to be really more interesting than the current times,
Okay.
if you will. Like how they get there, what was it like to really grind and stuff like that. And there's just so many more interesting people like yourself that are, running organizations today that I think people would be curious about and want to learn more about. So anyway, so that's why I do it. That's why we're here. But diving in to you specifically, you're the founder and owner of Viva Barcelona Learning. You have this mission statement on your website is revive the Spanish you once knew. And that's the one that caught my eye. Very good job with the statement there. Even years ago, I remember like, ooh, that's good. And I know even you as a business owner, like what you're doing has evolved probably since the beginning to where you are now, which we'll absolutely get into. But prior to that, I mean, I just went on LinkedIn and did a little searching around about your background, but it was primarily in an academic environment.
Oh yeah.
You were teaching advanced placement courses at a number of the area high schools, IMSA, Hinsdale Central, Naperville North. Hinsdale Central is your alma mater.
Yes. Definitely part of the whole story here. So yeah.
Absolutely. So obviously just thinking about this through the lens of, going from academia to entrepreneurship, there's a leap there. But I think what I always love to do is, rewind the tape a little bit. We're going to have plenty of time, the opportunity to dig in on exactly what you're doing now, but like take me along, the journey from start as early as you want to.
Okay.
But the journey, your academics, your professional career, and what led up to, you being an entrepreneur today.
Okay. So kind of going back to the days where you and I were running around campus, I had started out, I think a lot of people, my family is in healthcare, and I thought, oh, am I going to go into the medical field? And like my parents. And when I got there, I was always trying to sneak in Spanish classes into
Mhm.
my schedule, and I just was kind of like, you know what, this is my first love. I love the language, I love the culture, I love learning about it, and if I can get other people fired up about it,
Yep.
that's sign me up. So
Yep.
I graduated with a degree in Spanish and education,
Okay.
and was lucky enough to get a job at my alma mater, like you said, at Hinsdale Central, and taught at one of the schools that feeds into that high school as well.
Yep.
And that was that first 14 years of my career.
Okay.
And then, as you said, I had a little bit of a disruption in my career when my mom got sick and we wanted to be with her, fighting that brave battle with cancer. And
Yeah.
so took a little bit of a pause out of the classroom. And then, like you said, had taught it into Naperville North. And then I did not expect, I left the classroom unexpectedly. And it was, with that disruption, I was low man on the totem pole. And it was just kind of like, well, we don't have enough sections. You know,
Mm,
if I were advising you, if you were, my daughter, I would say go look for another job.
mm.
And and being really kind of in my head a veteran teacher, and I feel like I was meant to do this.
Tenure,
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
yeah. And I
Right.
kind of was like, whoa, this is not what I expected. And um, but I think you're an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur, and there's something that goes off,
Yep.
and there's a moment of kind of like, am I going to do this?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. And so that's when Viva Barcelona Learning was born. And I said, okay, I'm going to bet on myself. And I'm still going to do this. I'm still going to teach this language and this culture that I love so much. And so I work with people online, and I have self-paced lessons and also live sessions, and work with people from all over. And like you said, my main program that I started with was Revive the Spanish You Once Knew.
Mhm.
Um, and I decided to niche down. I feel like you can't really be everything to everyone, and I feel like there's, you can go on apps and you can learn a bunch of words and
Yep.
everything, but I feel like there's comes a point where you need to be able to speak and talk to people. And so that's kind of how that I developed that program. And I guess I had always had people saying like, "Oh, I took Spanish back in the day, and I just didn't keep up with it, and
Yep.
I wish that I had." And but when you go on these apps and things that are out there, that there's not a place or a space for that type of person who doesn't really need to start from scratch or start from the beginning.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was about 2.5 years ago when that all started. And then I do private sessions and things like that. And so I think your audience has probably amazing business owners, and I feel like I can speak to those early years and early phase of an entrepreneur. But
Yep.
yeah, been a lot of lessons,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. And I don't want to get too far in the rabbit hole too early here,
Yeah.
but um, I know you said one-on-one instruction. Do you
Sometimes,
do
yeah.
classroom and then like online too, or like how does it work?
So I don't really work with people live,
Okay.
or meaning excuse me, face to face
Okay.
in person.
Got it.
I work with people live via Zoom calls.
Got it.
And so I'll work with them, we'll work with some people one on one, but I work with groups. So this Revive the Spanish You Once Knew. You could do the self paced lessons of mine that I filmed, or you could do when we meet together once a week live in a group and I facilitate the topic of of conversation and
Mm,
the discussion questions and kind of point them in the right direction to refresh while we're there the relevant phrases or vocabulary that we would need in order to talk about whatever topic.
yep.
um, and it's just kind of grown into this fun community of other people who want to practice that skill.
Yep.
It's just like anything.
Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic to me because like we just got back from Mexico like a month ago, and I always feel like I'm on the cusp of actually being able to say something somewhat meaningful.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like, and the people are always like, "¿Tú hablas español?" Like,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
the
yeah.
way I say it sounds
Yeah,
good.
good.
It sounds good, but I'm always like, no, because I
Yeah.
will be able to communicate like maybe 75%
Oh.
of what I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
Maybe that's a lot. Maybe it's 60%, whatever it is. Right. But like, I don't know the vocabulary for a specific noun or a specific verb. And, so like I get stuck there. You know what
Okay.
I mean?
Yeah,
But like
yeah, yeah.
that reviving, I mean, I understand what you're getting at just from my own experience. You're not
Yeah.
starting from scratch.
Right.
You're just doing CPR on
Yeah.
what was once there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's also too, nobody wants to really go back and drill and do grammar and things like that. They want to exactly what you said. If whether it's for work or for travel or just, their own self, development, they want to be able to speak. And so kind of getting them in a situation that feels comfortable.
Yep.
Well, okay, you're with other people who are literally in that same boat, but to feel good while we're practicing, and then feel better when you walk out of there, and then be able to function
Yep.
and handle whatever situation you find yourself in.
Do you find from a dialect perspective, is there one for you in particular that you feel like is, because I know it can change quite
Yeah. Oh,
significantly
yeah. Sure,
depending
sure,
on
sure.
where you are in the world, but like
Right.
what would be, the one you lean into?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I forgot to mention that when we were doing our undergrad, I studied abroad in Spain,
Okay.
and but then I became this study abroad junkie and studied again in Spain, and then in Costa Rica, and then Peru, and then most recently in Guatemala. So I feel like that's actually being able to offer a variety of perspectives. Um, it for me it has been useful for my clients
Yeah.
to because it's like you said, depending on where they end up or what their goals are,
Right.
it can be different.
Right. There's
Yeah,
different words for different things.
yeah,
There's slang.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
all kinds of different.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But I mean, the key for our mantra that I kind of have my clients like remember when we start a call is, can you understand and can you be understood?
Yeah.
And that's it. And let's not get too hung up on things, whether that is the dialect or like the accent or, the perfect, verb conjugation or anything like that. But I feel like that moves the needle the most for people to feel comfortable and that they're communicating, which they are,
Yeah.
because that's all you need when you're communicating. So,
And where was the love of Spanish like born for
oh,
you? Is it like yeah, I don't know. I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't remember that you studying that in college.
okay.
But that was a long time ago.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But obviously you knew you had a passion for it
Yeah.
while you were doing it.
Hmm.
Was that a teacher? Was that, something different? Like where do you think that was sort of catalyzed?
I think it was a combination. I think when like when you're little at school and they like introduce these like exploratory, subjects or whatever. And I just remember that first experience, and it was like cracking a code, and like, oh, okay, this means that. And then, okay, so I just was intrigued from go. My dad was always like, why Spanish? Like, you're not
Yeah.
gonna need this. Like, why do you need to learn this? But I had this teacher who felt like, oh wow, she has got her act together and she's so professional.
Yeah.
And I just really kind of gravitated to how she ran things.
Yep.
And yeah, I was fortunate to when I got hired there to teach alongside her and learn from the best.
Yeah.
And so I really kind of fought that whole thing of, okay, should I dedicate my life to this?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think that's why I started college with a different major, and then I was like, you know what, this is what I was meant to do, and I
Yeah.
still feel that way,
Well,
and
yeah.
I'm
I mean,
still yeah, just as fired up about it as I was back then. So
do what you love for a living, and you'll never work a day in your life.
right,
Yeah.
right.
And I mean, interestingly, that was a different time, right? Like we graduated high school in '96. I don't I don't remember exactly what the options were back then, but I don't like, so my daughter is a senior and took AP Spanish language last year and then is doing literature this year.
Oh
So
wow.
she's got her seal of biliteracy
Okay, wow.
last year.
Fantastic.
Um, but like I don't remember that being remotely an option
No,
back when we were going through.
no, you're right. You're right.
So it's come a long way,
Absolutely.
right?
Hmm.
No, that's I mean, I'm just validating that more than anything else because I'm like, I don't remember that, but I could see that having an impact. And we're certainly, now that she's looking to go to college and things like that, we're like, hey, you should really, leverage this, stay with it, study abroad.
Good. Yeah.
And you're never going to regret not knowing another language.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how I still feel today. I feel like, with what you do, with what I do, in the end, whatever you're offering, this a service, a product, you're just trying to help people. In my case, like to handle a situation that they would not otherwise be able to handle.
Yeah.
And that's just how I feel about speaking another language. And there's just, you know, there's no harm in doing it.
Yeah.
And I think most people kind of are proud of themselves for being able to do it and keep up with it.
Um, Very good. Well, I wanted to dive in a little bit more on the details of how you do what you do.
Yeah.
I think that was a fantastic overview of what you're doing. Um, but when it comes to, the second language in general, right? Like, let's say somebody was listening that had never met you. Like
Mhm.
I said, I've been kind of following your journey, online, but let's say they didn't know that this was an option,
Mhm.
right? What are the applications for why do you think it's important for people to like be like, you know what, I will do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, what are the most useful applications that you've seen people apply it to?
Yeah. I feel like to begin with, I was kind of targeting, okay, people who want it for perhaps work or
Okay.
their own personal travels. But I also have come to attract people who are doing it just for their own personal growth.
Yep.
So with uh, work purposes, some of my success stories have been people who can work remotely
Mm,
and they've decided, you know what, like, why don't I work from Colombia? Why don't I work from
mm,
Spain? And so to kind of give them, they haven't had Spanish for years, sometimes a decade or so,
yeah.
and but know that they have this opportunity to live somewhere else, work. Okay, so what do I need to do to get functional, conversational, build some fluency, and be
Yeah.
able to kind of handle any setting or situation? So yeah, so that's definitely been one. And then I feel like I thought initially when I built it that it was going to be okay, you do the 6-week program and then you kind of move along and then I kind of get more people into these cohorts.
Yep.
But these clients of mine have decided, oh, I really like this. I'm going to sign up again for the next round. And
Yep.
so I've kind of had this community of regulars who, still just want to keep up with it.
Yep.
So it almost feels like I liken it to almost like a book club
Yeah.
where the material is different each time,
Yeah.
but the concept and kind of that, like I said, that community was something that I didn't anticipate building along the way, but it's
But
been
that's
awesome. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of different like types of cohort groups and things like that that like people are familiar with, like Vistage, for example, is like a kind of peer-to-peer thing for business owners
Oh, okay.
that business owners pay to be part of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And there's, different variations of that. There's
I'm writing that down.
yeah, there's all different types of entrepreneurship type groups
Hmm.
that are more business oriented. But like to your point, whether it's a book club or whatever, like having a built-in community of people that you could pay a certain amount of money, and everybody knows the day, time. You're the facilitator. They don't need to prepare in advance. They can
Hmm.
come in and just continue to refine that skill,
Yeah,
and keep active with it.
yeah.
I would imagine is a ton of fun. You know.
It is.
Is
Yeah,
it
yeah.
all evenings or is it daytime or like how does it?
It currently is evenings. So yeah, Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Central, and it's been kind of fun to have people just across all different time zones
Yeah,
jumping in, and yeah, it's really kind of relaxed and kind of come as you are. And some people are, sipping on their favorite beverage, and just enjoying what we're all there to practice and
yeah,
do. Yeah.
yep.
Um,
So you have these cohort groups,
mhm,
you have more individualized training.
mhm.
And that's sort of the B2C, right? So business to consumer directly.
Yeah.
But I feel like you've also recently, I feel like,
Yeah.
have kind of towed into more the corporate side of the equation. I
Yeah.
was curious about that because I've seen a few of your posts. So,
Yeah.
so talk, how did that evolve and like how are you sort of doing that application now?
Yeah. So, um, I recently expanded in 2024 into Spanish for healthcare.
Okay.
And I just kind of those iterations of the self paced lessons and then those live sessions. I've taken that and applied that to now this very specific use of the language.
Yep.
So it's currently basic level interactions for healthcare providers to navigate their conversations and interactions with patients.
Yep.
Um,
Totally
so
1000% useful. I mean, my wife, in addition to being a consultant, is a registered nurse and went at Rush, or she was at Rush, sorry.
Mhm.
She hasn't been there in a while, but when she was, she would interact with patients all the time. And she was like, man, I wish I could understand and speak better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Exactly. And I feel like there's such a need, as you said. And eh, so yeah, while this training is at this point is more, it's very specific, but it's more on the basic level. It's phrases. I'm still going with that whole thing of I want you to be able to speak and use these phrases starting tomorrow. And we don't have healthcare providers are like the busiest people ever,
Yeah.
and they don't have time to be drilling grammar and things like that. So it's not like that. But it's kind of okay, well, let's take what you use and say all the time,
Yeah.
and then let's get you feeling really confident and comfortable to be able to use those right away. So
Got it.
yeah, so in that sense, I was able to um, take this and propose it to Athletico Physical Therapy,
Mhm.
which I'm super excited about. They have clinicians and clinics, about 1,000 locations across over 28 states and growing, I think.
Yeah.
So there's been a focus, recently, or the kind of people who are enrolling. That there's different healthcare providers, but physical therapists are in those cohorts
Yep.
right
And are
now,
you
which
kind of doing the same thing? Like you're creating these cohorts, right? That people can be part of, and then you're teaching them things that are applicable to the people that they're interacting with every day.
exactly,
Interesting.
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's got, I mean, I mean, the scale of that opportunity is enormous, and there's just
That's
you,
we're hoping. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
there's just you right now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or do you have other people that are working with
No,
you?
no, no. That's you're right.
Okay.
It's still just me.
Okay. Um, which is super exciting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because you could be, onto something that, could scale and grow with it. Um, your option versus like, I'm being totally naive here,
Yeah. Yeah.
versus like, I'm trying to think of the pathway that like an Athletico, for
Mhm.
example, let's say they're like, you know what, this is something we want, we want to roll this out to all 1,000 of our locations, and we're going to tell people that this is part of your onboarding or part of your once a year, you got to put in continuing education, if you will,
Yes. Yes.
right? You got to put in so many hours per, I mean, like, how does you like, does anything exist besides what you're offering, right? In terms of that approach, or not really?
No, so yeah, these are all great questions and
Yeah.
things that I've kind of like looked into, and so yeah, I feel like the opportunity is huge, and ultimately, I would love to be part of the onboarding process in a lot of healthcare institutions.
Yep.
Um, as far as continuing education, yes, that's also something that I'm continuing to pursue. So, right now in the state of Illinois, yes, I can offer physical therapists and physical therapy assistants continuing education units because they have to get relicensed every two
Yeah.
years,
Okay.
as you're familiar with your wife, and then also too, getting that approval as well in some other places for registered nurses
Yeah.
and other nursing roles. Um,
Or just anything in
so
healthcare. I mean,
yeah, exactly. I mean,
hygienists,
yeah, for sure.
dentists. I mean, like
The
athletic trainers.
No, right, right, right.
Yeah.
The approval process, because you're right, it is just me, and so the approval process for that, there's just kind of like a lot of hoops to get through with that. But I think that's just also, what do you get in addition to being able to function and communicate better with your patients,
Yeah.
and build that trust and get those better outcomes, and everything that you've seen with your in your wife's practice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited about building this program out to appeal to other roles in healthcare. However, so the question that you asked was about, are there other programs like this? So I myself went through a bilingual medical proficiency
Okay.
certification program,
Got it.
and it was so grammar heavy. It
Mm.
took so long to get through, and this is someone with where I'm fluent, and
Yeah.
and I have had years of training and teaching these exact concepts, and I was kind of sitting there the whole time wondering like how who has time for this? This is like so anyway, there's that piece that I feel like there's kind of a hang up with, does will a medical provider really sign up for this and get through it all?
Yep.
And then also too, I feel like the speaking, it's fine and all to do things online, but I am a big believer in you have to if you want to speak, you have to speak.
And interact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to interact and talk with someone. So yeah, so when we meet in those cohorts, it's about, okay, let's practice this scenario. Okay. And let's role play, what you would say if a patient says this or does this. Or when you want to ask them to do, X, Y, or Z, if you're doing an assessment or you're trying to gauge their level of pain or comfort, what do you say or how do you ask to check in on the patient?
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm just a business guy. I'm not the Spanish expert, but I have to think that you have, and again, this is all conditioned on what do you want to do ultimately with this business. I mean, some people are like, hey, I'm just having fun. You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
from a scale perspective, I think you got a number of things that are, in your favor. Number one, I think, you know, the universe of opportunity is large, right? So it's not like, I mean, think of like how many hospitals there are, how many dental offices, how many,
Mhm.
school nurses. I mean, like, just there's so many to choose,
Yeah.
I mean, paths to choose.
Mhm.
So the market is ginormous, right? you have an online tool,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
In, Zoom or whatever you're using,
Mhm.
Teams. You have an opportunity to develop curriculum
Mhm.
that's even specialized, or can like target it towards a specific niche like physical therapy,
Mhm.
or like uh, a nursing environment in a hospital, or because they're similar but they're not going to be the same,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then, you know like I said, I mean, it's not like these types of things don't exist. I mean, there's other programs like a Vistage, for example, but like that, it's been demonstrated that you can have cohort leaders,
Mhm.
right?
Yes. Yes.
That could help you scale, in terms of how you're doing what you're doing. So I
Mhm.
think it's got a lot of like really core good pieces
Same.
for, continuing to build it, if that's something that
Mhm.
you would want to do.
Yeah.
You
No, that's absolutely what I want to be able to do. I mean, because as you said, yeah, building a team, that kind of is familiar with the brand and how we deliver this, and that we're not going back into some of those old school ways of learning language, but we want to equip these busy professionals to be able to get out there and start using
Yeah.
Spanish confidently. Yeah, that would be the idea of how to scale this. So yeah,
Yeah. No, that's great.
appreciate
I
that.
mean, and again, this is just me coming from experience, but as I think about that opportunity, if that's something, again, that you want to go down that road, I think the best pathway is to, find a niche and get really good at it, because then you can create the playbook with that and then apply it to something else. So, for example, I'm just making this up, but like, let's say it's a physical therapy environment,
Mhm.
right? If you get that like down,
Mhm.
right, and you've got the playbook,
Mhm.
and you've got what does week number one look like, what does month number one, what does month six look like, month 12, like how often are you, like, you know what I mean? You got
Yeah.
to figure out like how often are people doing this, and put it into a program that, number one, somebody wants to buy because they think it's uh going to get the job done, right?
Mhm.
In terms of
Mhm.
giving people what they need, but it's also
Mhm.
the right price point.
Yeah.
It's also pragmatically, like, you can't ask people to spend 5 hours a week doing this. You know what I mean? So it's
Absolutely.
got to make sense. But I think if you get the recipe right,
Yeah.
so to speak,
Yeah.
I think you can then take that recipe and pick it up and do it among, more physical therapy locations,
Yes.
or a different context that's adjacent to it, like I
Yeah.
said, a dental office, or
Right.
whatever it might be, right?
Right. Right.
um but yeah, there's a lot of opportunity there for the taking, for sure.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah, and to your point, I feel like that's probably going to be the where my efforts could and should go is
Yep.
kind of okay, let's you know, because you have that business mind and you're saying, okay, well, you just keep, getting depth and making a name for yourself within that physical therapy world. And, it's already built and it's getting, good reviews, good traction. And so, yeah, so that's going to be kind of the next step of, okay, how do we approach
Yeah.
other areas, other communities of clinics and brands.
Yeah.
So yeah, just kind of, and and this whole entrepreneurship thing, you're just kind of learning as you go.
Yep.
And so just learning how to make the right partnerships, including, with Illinois Physical Therapy Association
Yep.
itself. They have connections with all different brands and clinics across the state. And so, yeah, so I'm working on my things to roll out through them, their newsletters, their social media, and just kind of essentially. I've gotten a marketing package with them
Yeah.
to be able to appeal to their entire membership.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's just kind of a learn as you go, as I think
Yeah.
you know how it works with entrepreneurship. So yeah,
Yep. But I mean, I think you're definitely onto something. um what size of group feels right on those video calls? Like, it's got to be big enough to feel like, hey, I'm in a room full of people talking, but small enough to where you're not going to be like, I don't feel like I ever get a chance to talk. So like,
Oh,
what do you feel
right,
like is the sweet
right.
spot?
Yeah, sweet spot is the right term. I feel like between 4 and 10
Okay.
is where I feel like everyone's engaged. If I have groups that are as big as 10, I do use breakout rooms, when appropriate,
Yeah.
so that people do get those reps and they feel like, okay, I really practiced, and then I can kind of go in and check. But otherwise, I feel like, even signing up between 4 or 6 people, it's great because I can kind of keep an eye on things, but people are not getting bored with, when other people are kind of, I don't say performing, but I don't want to scare people away.
Dieseling. I call it dieseling.
Okay.
And people are talking too much, right?
Oh, yeah. So yeah, but being able to offer that CE credit here in Illinois, I do have to kind of keep it tight to a schedule because
Yep.
that's what I proposed. Um, and yeah, just kind of following along with that. And then they have their self-paced material too that they can always go back and refer to. Um, but also from a business standpoint, because you were asking about, business to business, I'm also super thrilled that Athletico has allowed their clinicians to be able to use their allowance, meaning from their,
Mhm.
benefits
Yep.
package. They have some, educational assistance funds that they can use toward the course, which is totally, that's a game changer. So yeah, I'm excited that, you know, they obviously support this endeavor, but that even, financially, they're also able to approve that for their clinicians
Yeah.
who are looking for it. Um, and yeah, and then and for me to be able to, and I'm still building that out to be able to offer continuing ed credit for people in other states too. So
Yep. Well, it's really exciting. Um, just thematically too, I wanted to hit on, we talked a little bit about the jump from education to entrepreneurship and, you know, teased out some of the details of, your model. Um, I'm always curious what surprised you the most about being an entrepreneur. And like part of that is, what was most surprising or has been most surprising. And then what's like maybe something that you thought was going to be easier that's been hard,
um,
or something that you thought was hard that's actually been easier.
yeah. Um I would say, I mean, obviously, I'm no like expert in entrepreneurship. I'm still in the very early phases, but
Yeah.
I would say because people had said like, "Oh, I want to start my own thing." Like, what do you think? And if anyone is out there listening and wondering that, I feel like you have to wear so many hats. You have to wear all of them,
Yep.
and some you don't like, and but you also, I think, have to have this type of energy and passion that you really care about this and making it work.
Yep.
And I don't think you know this, but a nickname for me that my friends and family have is sweatshop, because obviously that refers to like working crazy hours
Yeah.
for, nothing, or, pennies on the dollar. And so even back when I was, having to build a new curriculum or whatever, like, and like, oh, what time did you go to bed? Were you up sweat shopping? Like, it's like a
You're a
verb,
grinder.
it's like an
Right.
yeah, it's like a noun, it's like a total way of life. And I feel like if you're not really cut out for, like, okay, you just whatever it takes and you just tinker around and you just find a way.
Yep.
I think um it was sort of surprising, to answer your question, but you kind of have to be willing and prepared to just have that be your way of life.
Yep.
Um,
It's hard to separate um yourself and the job, right? Because the job is you.
yes. Yeah.
It's not going to exist without you acting upon it, right?
Yeah.
It's different if you work for XYZ Co. and you
Mhm.
decide, to leave.
Yeah.
XYZ Co.
Mhm.
is, gonna move on and replace you and whatever. Like, you are the business, in this
Yes.
case. And so you gotta be willing to do the things that, you don't want to do and are gonna
Mhm.
take sacrifice and
Mhm.
um, maybe some things that you're not as skilled at and lean into learning something new and, all the
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
But
And kind of to that point, I feel like it is that was the other thing that yeah, I guess surprised is the word. I mean, is you're this lone wolf in a way. It's,
Yeah.
you're kind of like when you're carving your own path, it's unique to you. And so, where are these, coworkers that you once had and you would bounce ideas off of and, you're kind of out there kind of just figuring it out. And so, yeah, so I've had to figure out ways to, get guidance and, get some, yeah, mentorship and
Yeah.
yeah, some just other resources because like you said, that's why I'm interested to hear about this or find out more about this stage. But
Yeah.
yeah, I tapped into have you heard of score.org?
No.
Oh, okay. So it's I feel like they're a generation above us. From what I gather, but they're probably like 11,000 volunteers of like I'm thinking they're retired folks who want to give back. But they're just all across the country. There's chapters everywhere. And not that I meet with my mentor in person, but we meet via video call once a month, and it's just been really great to have someone who's not um, totally in my life or in my business, but to kind of be this accountability partner
Yeah.
and asking me, have you done this or did you follow up on that? So yeah, so for me, finding a business mentor like that was really really valuable.
Oh, very good. I've not heard of that one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I'll definitely,
Score.org. Yeah, check it out.
I will definitely look it up. Anything that you thought was going to be hard and has actually been like, well, that wasn't as hard. Like, for example,
Oh, oh, no, I was gonna answer the opposite, like,
okay, go ahead.
yeah,
Oh, yeah,
no,
no, well, that's
yeah,
I think that that's the natural thing is,
mhm,
it's just hard. But
mhm.
sometimes, like, for example, one of the things for you might be finding people that want to participate
Oh,
is
sure,
not
yeah.
is not nearly as hard as what I thought it was going to be. The harder part is me logistically trying to make it work. I'm just
Oh, yeah.
I'm making this up, but I'm always getting like kind of curious. Like, man, I thought it was going to be a really hard lift to, find people that wanted to participate in this, and that really hasn't been a barrier or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I don't know if there's anything like that for you.
well, I guess those 2 things are kind of related because I feel like what I thought, "Oh, okay, you just put this out on social media and, it will, you'll find the people." And it's just not I don't know, that's harder for me
Yeah,
than I anticipated. However, I feel like that network of people that I have known, whether that was from, my high school days, college days, or all the people now that I've taught who now are, these adults and, or their families. I feel like even though coming from a space where I really never thought, oh, I had to be networking because I was,
yeah,
a classroom teacher, but it turns out that all along the way, I had been. And so, yeah, so I feel like the word of mouth and the referrals and, you know, leaning into that network that I actually turns out I do have,
yeah,
has
absolutely,
yeah,
yeah,
has been really, um, a pleasant surprise,
yeah,
where all of these kinds of, partnerships and, taking in new clients where that's a lot of that has come from.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, I mean, I feel like leaning into that, it has just been more important than I think I gave it credit for.
yep. I think that well, that's always your people that you've grown up with or have been in your circle at some point in time in your life. I mean, like it's mission critical to
Mhm,
your support
mhm.
system in many ways.
Yeah.
Including being a referral partner or giving you advice or whatever
Mhm,
it might be.
mhm.
I will continue to reiterate. You've got a lot of the good pieces that I think are to your advantage and definitely doable. I think one of them even if it's I learned this actually, part of my journey actually was uh leaving Wall Street. When I left, I went to go work. for this church, mission
Mhm.
church in Bloomingdale, and it was very artistic world. I was like, I always tell people that like I went from being like the teddy bear on Wall Street to being like the big bad wolf, yeah,
Ah,
in there because it was just like a totally different context of artists and left brain thinkers, not right brain thinkers, and
mm,
all that kind of stuff. But what a lot of what I gleaned from being there, and they're still a client, to this day,
mhm.
um, 12 years later, um, a lot of the things that I gleaned from that were communication skills. And like one of the things that, uh, they always talk about is like simple, clear messaging. And I talk about this with our clients even a lot right now is like, okay, you need to refine your pitch a little bit on um, what you're doing and how it delivers value to people
Mm.
because it's really easy to give people 10,000 different applications of how this could help you or whatever, but you give people too many options and they start like checking out,
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit. So it may be, I would think helpful. I think your tagline is awesome, reviving the Spanish you once knew, right? But
Mhm.
then how does somebody opt into it, right? Like I don't know. I'm almost like thinking we got to like workshop this a little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah,
not
yeah,
live,
please. Yeah.
not live, because I don't want to screw it up. But I do think that there's some key elements there that like you can have a couple of different words that people will be like, oh, I get it now. That applies to me. You know,
Okay.
so
Okay.
like if there's
Yeah.
a different application for people that want to do it for vacation purposes and just fun,
Yes.
something
Yes.
like that, versus this is part of my career, where
Mhm.
you're
Mhm.
targeting from a business standpoint,
Mhm.
you're trying to reach those organizations that have people that are interacting with patients and
Yes.
they need it.
Yes.
Like even some clear messaging about like how you can do that, I think it's right there.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
you're like right there.
Okay.
And like I said, I think that along with the other things that I mentioned before,
Yeah.
I think you got a huge opportunity at it.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely want to, workshop that and hear
Yeah. I'm not a
with
marketing
your,
expert. I just
but
I know
still,
enough to be dangerous and be like, yes, okay,
yeah.
like simple,
Mhm.
clear, almost iterative. If that person isn't going to buy it, they got your message so quickly and so clearly
Okay.
that the next time they see somebody and it comes up, they'll be like, oh, you need to call Lily
Okay.
because that's what
Okay.
she does.
Okay.
So anyway,
This is great. I'm learning. I'm
yeah,
learning. Yeah, learning
yeah,
as we
I
go.
love it. I love it. Um, so tell me about what's the best way for somebody who's listening in and they're like either for their own use or for their work related purposes or whatever it might be. Like what's the best way to get in contact with you for a consultation to
Yep.
learn more, like
Mhm.
your social media channels or your email or what website, what's
Yeah. So the my website is the name of my company, which is Viva Barcelona Learning.com.
yep.
For your listeners, if that's a little hard to remember, you can go to reviveyourspanish.com.
Okay.
It'll all, bring you to my site and you can contact me through there. And my socials are there. And I'm on LinkedIn and on Instagram as well. I am Barcelona on Instagram.
Okay.
But yeah, from there you can, get, freebie, if you will, and book a consultation and reach out and find out if this is a good fit.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm here to help anyone who wants to, like you said, revive the Spanish that you once knew, or help healthcare providers interact with their patients.
Yeah. Outstanding. Uh, it just reminded me, I forgot to ask you earlier, your last name is Barcelona.
Yes.
So how long did it take? Was that a requirement that whoever your future spouse was had to have a Spanish invoking name in their last name or
Yeah.
no?
I used to joke that, at parent night at school, like, oh, I went looking for a husband in the phone book. And yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and, no, yeah, that's my real name. And yep.
yeah.
And it's just apropos and it just works. And, it's what I am. It's
Yes.
who I am. So
Convenient, right?
very
It
convenient.
helps. It definitely helps. Um, Outstanding. Well, this has been great. Like I said, I think you've got a huge opportunity, and I think something that people would genuinely be excited about. Like I said, I can think of plenty of examples in my own life of either people that, like you said, love to travel or love the culture
Yeah.
or whatever, but they
Yeah.
just would like to learn more.
Yeah.
And I think that they could do it as like a hobby.
Yeah. I would love
Um,
to have you.
yeah,
So please,
yeah,
we'll chat
yeah,
if you want to
and
check it out.
and then the business application too is just it's right there. So
Thank you.
yeah,
I'm excited. Yeah,
yeah,
to
I'm
see it
pumped for it.
how it unfolds. So thanks. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. Working hard.
wonderful. All right, you're not off the hook yet.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So I normally end each podcast with a couple of questions. These are just fun. They're not business talk. They're not
Okay.
entrepreneur talk. It's just more like, let's have some fun with it, right?
Okay.
Get to know you a little bit. So the first question is top three rock and roll bands of all time. And I always caveat this, if you're like not a rock and roll person and you're like, I'm really more like this, feel free to adapt. It could be your maybe three favorite artists of all time, like
Hmm. Okay.
whatever
Okay.
comes top of mind for you.
Let's go with the rock and roll. I
Okay.
feel like, admittedly, yeah, probably used to listen to rock and roll much more in my past than I do currently.
Yep.
But I think it's good to kind of think about that foundation. Um, I recently got to hear a stripped down version of "Let It Be" by Cynthia Erivo live, just accidentally, and that was awesome. And it reminded me of the Beatles and listening
Yep.
to them as a teenager. I think a lot of us 90s kids, loved some kind of, throwback
Yep.
material. But yeah, just kind of the unfolding of their entire journey was foundational, I feel like.
Yep.
Um, then I think I would put number two, Aerosmith.
Okay.
I
You're not the first person to mention
really,
Aerosmith.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that Permanent Vacation and Pump and Get a Grip, like those albums. I feel like um when I was younger and listening to those, I could really appreciate like there's some like really passionate, rock anthems in
Yeah.
there, but also um some ballads that were more storytelling.
Yep.
And feel like I could just really appreciate that kind of range.
Yep.
Um
Yeah. Nobody's gonna accuse Steven Tyler of not being a passionate
yeah.
singer, but you're right.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like a lot of rock songs, the lyrics are kind of nonsense, but they have. I think Aerosmith has a little bit more poetic storytelling,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
lyrics.
Yeah.
Now that you say that, I wasn't thinking that, but yeah, I
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And then I think kind of putting together those two ideas, I would say you too.
Yep,
I feel like, that long musical career and letting that unfold.
yep,
I think I have a new appreciation of that now that I'm older of okay, like that your whole career can kind of just evolve with time
yep,
um and similarly, showing that kind of range of like those passionate anthems, but then also, yeah, some more, emotional or,
yep,
thoughtful
yep.
pieces in there.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
Question.
Good answer.
Thank
Good
you.
answer.
That was a cool question. Thanks.
Question number two is which annual holiday is the best one? And feel free to any holiday will do.
Okay.
Um,
Does it have to
I
be
get
a holiday
it
or
can be whatever
okay?
you want, you know. Just some day per year or whatever that is particularly special to you. And
Okay.
why do you like it that much?
Um, okay. I do go on an annual girls trip with my college girlfriends,
Yeah.
and that's amazing. I look forward to
Shout
that
out to
every year.
all you guys, by the way,
Yes, thanks.
that are tuning in.
Yes.
DG Theta softball champions,
Ooh, that's right.
champions in 1997.
Yes.
Excellent job.
Thank you, thank you.
Probably due to the coaching,
Yeah,
mostly.
absolutely. We couldn't have done it without you guys, that's for sure. But I do look forward to that every single year. But the Chicago Marathon also
Yeah.
too, I was just talking about that. That is like just like a wonderful piece of humanity
Yes.
to experience that each year. But then I mean, totally generic. I love Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not about the gifts. It's, kind of getting together and loving food. And I feel like what's better than that than getting together and loving the food you're eating. So yeah.
So that in a traditional sense, Thanksgiving, you
Yeah.
love your annual trip with the girlfriends,
Yeah.
and then you yada yada the Chicago Marathon a little bit. Now, have you run it
Oh
or you
no.
just observe it?
No,
But
no,
it
no.
is what you described. I mean, it's like I've only ran it once, and it was a long time ago.
Did you? Okay, I
Yeah,
didn't know. I did not know that.
yeah, but
Good for
it
you.
is extremely um in a world where you feel like there's just so much polarity and whatever, it's a very humanizing experience. You know what I mean? Everybody's
Yes.
lining you up, and you're like, why do these people care? And they're all there probably to see somebody else besides you, but then cheering you on and stuff like that. It
Yeah.
just does feel great.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Love it.
It's a good day here.
Um, all right. This is an interesting one for you. The third question is, if you weren't doing what you are currently doing for work, what is a completely unrelated career that you can see yourself enjoying and thriving in?
Oh, okay. Do you want like the harebrained like idea like when I was younger or like an actual like viable like
Um, yes,
okay.
maybe
Um
both. I don't know.
okay. I feel like younger like thought about this question when I've been you're asked when you're younger and I would say like, oh, if I could be the tambourine girl for a world famous band on world tour,
Okay.
like that would be so amazing to like hype up the crowd, but like in a totally low stakes kind of way,
Okay.
and still see the world.
Yep.
That would be amazing.
Yep.
But I feel like realistically, I think when all of this is said and done, I would love to. It is kind of related, so it's not unrelated to what I do,
Yep.
but I would think I would love to um, almost like volunteer, teach English in Italy.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
kind of just set up in an amazing town. Eat
Why
amazing.
Italy and not
Oh,
like Spain?
let's Oh, we've been there a little bit recently. I think it's just that sort of recency effect for one,
Yep.
but two, I mean, I'm not closed off to other areas, obviously.
No, I'm just curious.
But yeah, I mean, just like the food, the weather, the uh, being able to get around,
Yep.
and it's also new to me. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm newer to me. I'm excited. I mean, I'm so fortunate to have seen all the places that I have.
Yep.
But I'd love to, dive in and spend a good amount of time
Yep.
there. So,
I recently heard a podcast with one of the Lennon boys. I don't remember which one it was. But anyway, he lives in Nice, and he was talking about going for Italian food and like getting friends in the car and saying, "Hey, you
oh,
guys want to go get Italian food?" And they said yes. And then an hour later, they're still driving, and they're like, "Where is this restaurant?" And he's like, "Italy."
oh,
Like
it's worth it.
literally,
It's worth the
it's
trip.
worth it. It's
It's
worth the
worth the
trip.
drive. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Especially if it's just a drive. But yeah, that's awesome.
yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, um, this has been great. I really am excited for you. Like I said, I've been just kind of watching from a distance, but it's been great to just have the opportunity to learn more for myself. And, I'm sure there are other people like me, that hopefully will be able to tune in and hear your story. And so I'm excited for you to be able to use this as a tool for you to, connect with other people. And yeah, but wish you well. I'm very thankful for you being on here, and know you're going to do a great job. So,
Thank you. I'm so happy that you invited me. So I appreciate you, John.
yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks.